everyone. Thank you for being here. We're all very excited to be here at this presentation. We've done a lot of preparation and it will work. Okay, so I'd also like to say hi to the people in India who are watching right now, who are participating, people in Croatia, and a special thanks to Tim Phillips, who is not able to be here today, who is actually from Skylight. What? Uruguay is also now. Oh, they woke up now, huh? Okay, so let me just talk about what training in-company trainers do. We are all standing here. We are all in-company trainers, and we more or less don't do anything else. And we'd like to talk about how we deal with training in the company. And actually, we do this without using a book, most of us. What we do is, Carl, we talk about opening up the gap. So when we talk about training, we look at the gap. We try to figure out what needs to be done. It's more like when a doctor goes to the office and says, I don't feel well, and you have to diagnose that patient. You don't know what they have. And at the same time, as a business English person or somebody learning business English say, I'm missing the words. You as a trainer, we have to try to figure out, well, what kind of words are they missing? And this is actually, our approach is looking at the job itself, the job competencies that they need, and setting up course targets. After that, once we've really opened up this big gap, and the gaps are quite large sometimes. Yeah, a trainer here, we have to close the gap. So this is the second part. In order to do this, we use a lot of different types of skills. So we talk about, when we talk about training and professional development, we look at collaborative type of training. We are working with the person or the learner to actually reach some of these targets that you need to do. We also talk about curiosity. In order to really get yourself into these people's lives, you have to have authentic curiosity. You have to be interested in learning about their job processes, technical processes, and anything about the job. Closer, okay. All right, finally, I think as a trainer you have to be credible. That means in order to create any kind of trust with this collaboration, you have to have a certain credibility. Otherwise, it just won't work. There is a level of trust. Finally, we talk about coaching, which is the emotional part, giving feedback, and that is actually where it really makes, all the learning process makes it stick. So let's go on to the, okay. And there's also a gap in professional development. And at Skylight, we've been doing this for over 10 years now. We've been using the CLTC to do professional training in-company for in-company trainers. And the approach is actually still a gap there that we like to say that we are trying to cover for in-company trainers, which is we're looking at the client as a resource. Okay, this is one of the first things that you can have to get your head around. Talk about job competencies, identifying them in the job in an in-company situation. We also talk about business processes, which is one of the most difficult but most interesting areas about in-company training, is getting your head around a process at a company. We also talk about, when doing that, is taking the tasks and then breaking them down into learning targets. And so this is part of the CLTC, which is actually a lot more entailed than just spinning off like a sentence right now. We have courses on this. Then we go into identifying communication skills. It's all very collaborative. It's a collaborative training process. It can be very messy, and it's not easy, but it is effective once you get the hang of it. We actually talk about scenarios. We implement scenarios to make sure that people do understand how their communication is working, if they are effective. And finally, we talk about coaching. And coaching for us is something very serious. We do have some accredited, certified coaches up here that do deal with business in-company language training on a coaching basis, and they will tell you maybe a little bit more about that. So I've had enough to say. What I'd like to say now is I'd like to hand over the presentation to 5 excellent and good trainers up here who are going to give you some snippets of what in-company language training looks like and what they do. Now, what I'd like to say is that we all have the same approach. We all do the same thing, but Stefan is not doing the same thing as Anna. And Leslie is definitely not doing the same kind of training that Peter or Sonia's doing, but we're all doing, we have the same focus. We talk about a standardized process with a customized content. So I'd like to hand this over now to Stefan, where you're going to give.
Okay, good morning. So I'm going to tell you about.
Keep it closer.
I'm going to tell you about Ralph.
It was okay, perfect way.
Okay.
Like that?
Okay. So.
You're smaller.
Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you about Ralph. He's a student at one of my most important customers. I'll give you a hint. They make Prit Loctite Persil. And yeah, I call him a problem child because he is a lab technician in a group of back office employees. So there are 4 people, blue ones, back office staff, and he's a lab technician. Next slide, please. And as you can see, he's in the research and development department for sealants and silicones. And the other 4 have classic back office duties. And this is difficult because there is basically a massive clash of learning goals. And I had to find a way to get around that. So Ralph's goals are basically, since January this year, he has to explain the synthesis of polymers. I mean, this was a challenge for me as well. To Chinese trainee lab technicians who are basically coming over from China to corporate headquarters. They're now involved in the R&D process. And he has to do stand-up presentations like I'm doing now, but to groups of about 5 or 6 of these trainees. And then more importantly, in the lab, he has to do hands-on presentations. So how to synthesize polymers, which is actually quite a dangerous process. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, and yeah, the challenges for me, well, this course has been going for about 3 years. And for the first 2 years, Ralph turned up because his boss said, go to the English course, you might need it one day. So that's why he's in the wrong group, really. And he always agreed with the learning goals of the group. He never caused problems. But in January, I noticed he took like the needs analysis really seriously. And he goes, Stefan, I really need help now. These guys are coming over, and I'm going to look like an idiot if I can't do this pretty quickly. The other problem is, of course, the other 4, they don't like Ralph anymore. Because they are totally disinterested in the synthesis of polymers, as you can imagine. And he's a lab technician. The client is not willing to provide one-on-one training for him. And as I mentioned before, this stuff is pretty dangerous. These chemicals, if you spill them, get them on your skin, inhale them, they will cause you serious harm. So I am not allowed to go in there. Next slide, please. So, the solution. I thought about this for a while, and a very good thing at this client is we do an extremely detailed individual needs analysis with each person in the group. So I spent the first week or so looking for common areas. And then I came up with a concept, and what's also really important, that's why I put it in second place, is to explain this concept to the participants so they don't suddenly think, oh no, I'm suffering in my course, why am I suddenly suffering now? So I explained my concept. And basically, it's really simple. I just looked at the 5 needs analysis and I picked out the areas of common relevance. And on days when a lot of them attend, I have to say that attendance in this group is a bit patchy, but then we focus more on the common goals. And when there is just poor attendance one day, we focus on the individual goals. And about 2 or 3 times in a 30-week course, I can be assured of getting each participant individually, and then we really nail down the synthesis of polymers. But so that there's a system behind it, I said to the group, look, everybody in this group has the right to dedicate 45 minutes of the training per month to their own individual goals, no matter how much the others suffer. It's a group course, but everybody is important in this group. So that's what we did. So ESP, it's towards setup. Next slide, please. So, okay, that slide shouldn't have been there. Okay, so basically, the very detailed needs analysis were critical, and this selling the concept to the participants was critical. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what I do with Ralph when I have him to myself or with one other suffering participant. We basically do whiteboard sessions when he explains to me how to synthesize polymers. And I mean, it's just really simple stuff. You'll notice that the red titles, that's what Ralph has written, and the green is me, and it's a 7-step process. So he's been explaining it to me. And the goal of this in the long run is to make a kind of template which he can use each time he has to do a demonstration to an individual trainee. Next slide, please. Okay, and there you can see the kind of language input I'm giving him. And I don't think it would really be worth buying a book just to give him that, because that's what he's getting from me. And probably the most important thing he's getting from me is when he's explaining this to me, I'm demonstrating to him either with my feedback or I'm actually telling him, yes, I can follow that, yes, that's well structured, or not. Next slide, please. And the other thing we're doing is to make basically Ralph's version of PowerPoint, because he can't use PowerPoint in the lab. He does, however, have a whiteboard, and he can like hang up a flip chart paper. So this is also the sort of the draft version. And okay, what do we do with this input? Well, what's really important is always have your phone if you're doing this flip chart or whiteboard sessions, because you have to record it somehow. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I'm going to show you Ralph in a moment. Okay, but this like raw data in the form of images. What we do with that is, for example, he can then show that to his boss, because somebody has to check that we are doing this right, because I am not an expert in the synthesis of polymers. So his boss can have a look at it. We also make nice, we're doing in Excel actually, like laminated system, like flowcharts you could say, for the processes. And what we're also doing is recording some of these sessions, so he can just get MP3 files, so you can listen in the car or at home. And he's also using Phase 6, so we're putting the vocab from these sessions into his vocab trainer. So Ralph is kind of having a mini individual course in a group course without annoying the other ones too much. And of course they get their revenge when he has to listen to ordering dyes in China and things like that, or custom. Okay, let's just have 5 seconds of Ralph's video, please. And Ralph did agree to be shown. Yeah.
Good morning. Today I would like to explain how to synthesize polymers. Therefore, I will explain the 7 most important steps of this synthesis. And, let's go to the first step, the preparation. There, the most important thing is the equipment. And first, you have to collect the items. After you get these items, for example, you need a 3-neck flask and also a stirrer, the stirrer device, the heating mantle, the control unit for the heating mantle with a thermometer.
Okay, and that's how I take care of Ralph. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Okay. Right. So I'd like to introduce you to Anna. She's a Catalonian who moved to Germany about 18 months ago, and for her first job after graduating as a chemical engineer. Now, she came to me for English training, but under pressure. Pressure to perform and pressure to perform well for her boss, her team, and herself. Now, her team had been given only 12 months to research, implement, and present a system used in their company's sustainability program. Convincing the other business units to invest in this system not only meant that the project would be funded for a further 5 years, but it meant that Anna would keep her job, right? So now I also felt her pressure to perform. So I needed to get it. Slide, please. I needed to get it by understanding her needs. Slide. Facilitating an effective learning environment. Slide. and obtaining achievable, reproducible results. Okay, so here's how Anna presented her needs in order for me to get it. Audio.
Because I need to improve my writing. I did enroll in an English course because I need to improve my writing and also my presentation.
And do you think a course book could have met all your needs?
I don't think so, because the course books that I know contains a general things, but not the specific things that I need. My writings are very concrete, so it's like it's are similar like papers, but are not a simple writing.
So as you've heard, Anna's main focus was writing research papers and presenting results. So she provided the source. Her needs were very specific, and together we explored opportunities for her to practice. Now, even though our face-to-face sessions seemed like a good platform for her to develop her writing and speaking skills, I could sense that she needed more. Now, this became apparent when she told me that her boss had picked up on some mistakes that she had made in some other presentations. Now, this was never an issue in my sessions. So the only way that I would be able to see her in action was to create an authentic situation by having her present in front of another group. I had just the group in mind. This group had been working on the art of giving feedback, and were more than happy to practice the chance of using these feedback skills on her. So I got the groups together. After Anna presented to the group, I asked the group how they thought they helped Anna and if they got it.
We gave her feedback, the kind of, she was standing in front of the desk and how she was telling her voice, how she speak, how fast and how she looked like, her body language, and just like this.
Yes, I think it will help her because now she knows where she has to be better in and what is already good. The most thing was that she was speaking really fast, and so I didn't get anything at the time. And so when at the beginning she was really slowly and I got everything she wanted to tell, and at the end she was getting faster and faster, and that's in mind.
So by creating the scenario, Anna was able to get the feedback which really resonated with her, and this was good. Next slide.
So the feedback that the other people gave to me, it was good because I know now these are my problems and what I can improve. So for me it's very important because in a normal meeting I don't receive the feedback on how I do my work. So that's a good way that I can know what I need to do better. So it helped me a lot.
It turned out that Anna's boss had offered to do all the forthcoming presentations, including to upper management. and confirming that Anna's presentation skills were good enough to present to a higher level. And this was actually good. So bridging the gap as a trainer, I used the scenario based on the task to be performed, providing the training concept. Now, as in trainers, we need to employ the tools which make our training transparent and measurable. And as part of our feedback to HR, because it's our return on investment. So I'd just like to conclude with remembering that it's about integrating the company's internal processes into the training concept and not the other way around. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Okay, first slide, please, go. Okay. There are a lot of great books on the market, and I can certainly think of books which I have used to develop as a trainer. What I found, though, is that over the years I've used books less and less, and I also found that I did a better job without using books. So I want to look at a group. Please, Carl, the next slide. And show how I worked with this group, basically not using books, and by doing so give it more value. I think everybody kind of recognizes this group. Yeah? This was a group of lab assistants, machine operators who really don't communicate, don't want to communicate, and they most certainly don't want to work in English on a Friday afternoon. We've all been there. These guys, and they were guys, late 30s, early 50s, they work in flexible packaging. They are specialists in the adhesives, the machine operators, train people how to work on the machines in a technical center. The lab assistants, they have shown people how to perform test methods, explain test results, and also communicate with clients regarding the new developments. This was also the kind of group when if you put a book in front of them, you put a worksheet in front of them, you'd lost them. You could see they switched off. And this was my experience, that the material, the traditional material that was there was not actually working. Yeah, next slide please, Carl. Yeah, why are you here? I mean, I kind of asked this question, not in the first session, I think I asked it about session 15. You know, books or no books, good practice is good practice, and a needs analysis is absolutely vital. And you really got to know why these guys are here. When you know why these guys are here, then you can actually work out what it is that you can do to help them. And as Gabby was saying, it's about being very, very clear, breaking these tasks down. And if you're not working with a book, you've really got to be clear what it is they do. And yeah, next slide. No books does not mean no material. Okay? But your clients, they are the material, they are your main resource, and they actually have probably all the material you actually need. You just need to get it. I chose the CD-ROM because this was a real story. After about session 20, Oliver came to me and said, here's a CD-ROM, take this. I said, what's on it? And he said, it's presentations. Their managers who had to train other managers in an academy had prepared these 10 PowerPoint presentations. It was like the Holy Grail for us because this was our material. I still use it now. And you just got to get this material. Internet too. I mean, we've had 2 sessions and I look at the internet. There is so much out there. If you know your client is, has a customer, go to that customer's website. It's there. It is there. Okay, how do you get the material? Please, next slide. They've got to trust you. If they trust you, they get the material. And for me, I think partnership there is absolutely vital. When I look at my own kind of development, you kind of go in, I kind of went in as the expert. I was the expert and I was going to train these guys to do it. And really, it's a team. You have to form a team. They are the experts. I don't, well, I didn't. No, actually I don't, I'll be honest. I don't really understand half of the chemistry they're talking about. I understand more, but I don't really understand it. I understand more about flexible packaging, but they had this information and they had to help me. And my job really was to then fill in these gaps with the language and the communication. It's a team. I think it's a team, and in a sense, you know, we are the coach. But in a sense, it is a team. No team, it doesn't work. Let them do the work. What do I mean? Okay, I don't mean I'm not doing anything. What I mean is, they actually have to do it in the end. And I think also, sorry for myself, there is a tendency to do too much. Their group, they have to do the work. Let them do the work. And that also actually means bringing in the material. For example, I used to go to my fridge, I used to go to my bin, I used to find examples of flexible packaging, and I'd say, okay, explain it to me. From this, they bring in their examples, they bring in their projects, they bring in their presentations. Let them find the material, let them do the work. It's not for you. I kind of try and stick to a 70-30 rule. 70% is their time, their speaking time, 30% is mine. And when it's over 30 for me, I'm normally doing something wrong. I kind of wanted to finish up with a couple of tips, and this one really is bring work into the classroom. Like I said, get the guys to bring their work into the classroom, but then also leave that classroom. I had the advantage that Stefan didn't have. I could go into the lab. And so they trained me. They basically trained me to do the test. They trained me to do their job. And I could actually go into the technical, and they could show me how to work the machines. Leave the classroom. The more you bring work in and the more you go out, the closer what you do can replicate and benefit their work. Be curious. Everybody likes to be listened to, and you just need to listen, and you just need to show interest. And these guys are craftsmen. They're proud of their work. They're proud of what they do. And one of the great things that one of them said to me is, Peter, no one ever asked us about this stuff before. Just be curious. I mean, I work with people from different business backgrounds. I understand sometimes more than the others, but I don't understand everything. But if you're interested, you're curious, they will talk. Yeah? Use silence. Sometimes it's better if you just shut up. There is a tendency, I feel like, to not use silence, to fill in these gaps. And in this silence, there are real gems of communication. In this silence, you allow your client to actually find the solutions and to meet those challenges. And it's sometimes, and it's something I still have to work on, just be quiet and let the client actually speak. Value. I wanted to bring this more at the beginning, I didn't. It doesn't matter. I believe by using these approaches of actually being client-centered, of not using books, of actually using your client as the main material, is, for me at least, the best way that we can actually offer value. And in the end, that's what it's really about. And if I guess I'll finish up with a story. There was a mix-up. Okay, there was a mix-up right down in the communication, and I wasn't there. I wasn't at the session. I wasn't there. And in the end, they did the session without me. They knew what they had to do, and they did it. They sent me an email later. Thankfully, they laughed about it. It was Friday afternoon. It was okay. But they did it. They didn't actually need me. And I think I think that's value. I think that's value. Thanks a lot.
start, and now even better. My story is about a young manager called Frank. He had just started at the company, and he'd been sent to me for language training. His English was pretty good, more than pretty good. He was a confident B2.2 speaker with touches of C1, where you might almost think, what exactly is there to improve? So in our first meeting, we talked about possible learning targets and what he would like to do in the course. He talked about learning idioms, building up vocabulary, improving his English. He was actually rather surprised when I suggested that we practice presentation skills. He hadn't thought that that was something that you did in a language course, in an English course. Anyway, the idea obviously appealed, and we started work on presentation skills. For example, using the voice and pauses to have more impact. We worked on this through filming, and then we analysed the performance, and then he got feedback from me, and then we filmed again. The material that we used was always Frank's PowerPoints. I mean, this was almost like the opposite of this situation. This was, I would admit, an ideal training situation because there was plenty of material. Frank had lots of PowerPoints, and he had to present to all sorts of levels, also to the board. And Frank, of course, gave presentations in German, not only in English. So one day, Frank came along and said, I've got this really important presentation next week, it's German, could we do it? And I thought, I don't know. Can I do this? Am I able to do it? Is it a good idea? And am I allowed to do it? I don't know. It was important for him, so we just did the presentation. And in fact, it worked. It worked in German because our focus was on communication and was on behavior. And the language actually didn't matter in that sense. And this session was really interesting because it showed me a different Frank. It showed me someone who was a lot stronger and more powerful and more confident. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So that's what he's able to do. If he can do that in German, let's take that as a target. Let's try to get him that good in English. And that's what we tried. And I'm going to show you 2 short films. One is before, one is after, so at the start of the course and then near the end. And I'll let you be the judge of whether you think Frank has gone from pretty good to even better. Film. And I'm just about finished. That was Frank before and after, and now I'd like to show you a very mini interview with Frank himself, where he talks about how his view of language training has changed. The interview, please. Next video.
Over to the last one. I'd like to tell you the tale of Frank, Manuel, and Nikolai. They work in the Global Tax and Trade Department of an international chemical company, and they have a new boss. Their new boss is called Mirella, and she's from Slovenia. She has a different business culture. She also has a different background, a different business background, and she doesn't speak much German. So everything is in English. Now the situation is that Mirella is keen, she's very keen to find out as much as possible in as short a time as possible, and she's relentless.